Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Weekly Wildcat, a weekly podcast where we recap everything Linfield athletics here in our podcast studio. My name is Brian Kice, your host. To our left is once again Maddie Funk, and to our right is our guest for today's episode, Mia McCormack. Mia, thanks for coming on. You're part of the track team. We've got some questions for you. Maddie and I will bounce them off of you. In our first segment, 100 meters. So, Mia, let's just start with a basic one. You've done this a ton of times. What is your name, your major, your year, and where are you from?
My name is Mia McCormack. I am a junior in journalism and media studies with a minor in law, rights, and justice, and I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Las Vegas, Nevada. My part of the country is a New Mexico native. We have some questions for you. Maddie and I we'll bounce them off of you. And Maddie's got a first one for you.
Yeah, so for track, do you have any pre-race rituals or superstitions that you have?
Yes, it's essential for me to take a nap, like at least an hour before my race. And I listen to classical music and really just calm stuff to kind of get me not too hyped before my race. Gotta control that energy.
And how does that energy manifest itself when you get to the rubber? What does that look like when you get to the facility? Are you locking in? Do you have any pregame rituals, like a meal or anything like that? What does that look like on a day-to-day basis?
So I think for meals, I guess eating a banana on a bagel with peanut butter, that's always a go-to. And then, I don't know, just music's a big part of my pre-rituals. Sorry. I'm on the spot. Okay. Yeah, music's just a big part of getting in the zone for me before a race. Like I said, calm music all the way throughout race day until 30 minutes prior is when I start to listen more angry stuff, maybe stuff that I don't show my mom, like
You got another one, Maddie?
Yeah, and with that kind of like superstitions and the way you work for like meet days, what is the hardest part of training that people usually don't see?
I will say when we get deeper into season, it's very normal not to take any days off. So I'll be racing on Saturday, and then the next day I have a 6-mile or 7-mile long run. And that can be really hard on your body, especially when, you have school and then you have other things going on and just the school sport balance. Yeah.
So, Mia, you talked about being from Las Vegas, Nevada. What is that like coming up here to the Pacific Northwest to run track?
Oh, it's so much nicer up here. It is way too hot in Vegas. Like, I would probably be, I don't know, just dying of heat and I'm training. And here it's really nice and it rains a lot, and I enjoy that.
Is there any kind of elevation difference between Las Vegas and here?
I would say that we're lower elevation here than in Vegas, but I don't notice too much of a difference when I go back and forth between the two.
And you are a transfer at Linfield, correct?
Yes, I am.
Where did you come from?
Umpqua Community College in Roseburg, Oregon. Gosh,
And with coming from Vegas, how was your kind of recruitment process with track if you had a certain one, or how did you choose to decide where you were going to go?
Okay, so that's actually a really crazy story. So my senior year of high school, I had decided, like, it was my dream to come to Linfield. I always knew I wanted to come here, but I didn't get the scholarship I needed. So I was really sad about that, and I was just going to take a gap year, whatever. And then around that time too, I had played basketball my entire life, and my senior years also went, and I kind of had a really bad coach that made me lose the love for it. So I decided to start track just to end the year on a good note. And out of nowhere, a community college slid in my Instagram DMs and was like, hey, do you want to run for us for cross country and track? And I was like, okay, I have nothing else for me. So yeah, now here I am pushing person.
We all know that media is a crazy thing nowadays, and that's a fun story because a lot of the times, the basis of which people communicate about college and running and being in college athletics in this case is through media. So that's awesome to hear that. What is your favorite part about Linfield? It can be campus, it can be students, it can be anything.
Oh, I just love the campus is really pretty, and I like that it's very small. Because I came from a school where our graduating class size was like 730 something kids, and coming here and actually knowing my professors, being able to see people and recognize like, oh, I have a class with them. I know who that is. It's neat.
Then
And with the small size of this school, how is it for you being a student athlete and especially having so much on your plate? How does that really balance out with the student athlete life for you?
I think because it's so much smaller, there's more attention on you. So here, I really like it because our coach is really flexible with everybody. So what works for one person may not work for another one, and totally gets that. And I just never really had coaches that have done that before. So yeah, yeah.
so that brings us on to the rubber. What events are you running?
I usually run the 800 meter, and then I dabble in the 15 and the 4 sometimes.
Dabble as in what?
Like I'll run it every now and then, but the 800 is my main thing.
So what about the 800 in particular? And this can be for all of the events, but what about the 800 is unique?
So something unique about that is that it's a combination of speed and endurance, which are two things that do not go hand in hand with each other. It's like in the fall, 800 meter runners are usually running cross country, which is like 6 to 10 miles worth of runs in a day, just one day. And then when you get to track season, it's like now you're doing sprints. You got to hit this 200 meter sprint in like 30 something seconds. It's fun. It's diverse.
With all those different races that you compete in, what has been your most memorable?
Oh my gosh, man. I have to say, actually, this last race we had 2 weeks ago, I think it was at Western, I finally hit a sub 230 for the 800, which was a big deal for me. And
What kind of things go into the preparation for that kind of stuff? Are you working with other people? Are you connecting with a certain person at the track on your off days? Who are you working with to kind of achieve that higher goal?
Oh, my team for sure. I would not be able to do what I do without my teammates supporting me, my coach working with, what I got, and just being positive.
What about your teammates? Because it's no secret here at Linfield that a lot of Linfield track and field athletes have come from other sports, like you talked about, being a basketball player formerly. What is that like, having a bunch of people from different sports backgrounds coming together to achieve that ultimate goal in a sport that might not have been their first choice necessarily, but something they picked up and have kind of thrived in?
Shouldn't thought about that. I don't know. But I can't say that a lot of people, because I'm with the distance crew, so a lot of those guys have only ran track their entire life. They have never really played other sports meet. Like track has always been their main thing. So
Nice. I know that a lot of Linfield track, and particularly now the field players on the track side of things, have come from other backgrounds. Claire Moss and Jordan and the Roberts twins as well. All of those people have come from different sports backgrounds, and it's really unique to see is that's been such a big part of the Linfield track culture in the past and is now carrying over. Maddie, you've got a couple more questions for her. Why don't you wrap things up on our first segment?
Perfect. Coming from different schools and starting in high school and then going to community college and now here, how has being a part of those different teams kind of shaped your experience as a racer?
It's been, I think every school has a different culture with it, a different coaching style, different team environment, and it's been really neat to be able to take the best things from each one and then just push it on to the next one. So I think it's safe to have that opportunity.
And with your kind of work with your camera, I've seen a bunch of the stuff that you've done, and I absolutely love it. How does your major kind of allow you to connect with other sports on campus here?
Oh, it's fun. I feel like when you have a camera and you can just do anything, you can go anywhere, you can talk to anyone. And it's just fun, being an athlete my entire life. I've always wanted pictures of myself playing sports. And now that I'm able to do that for other people, it's It's me.
What kind of reception have you had with that? Because I know a lot of people, like you said, are like, "Oh, take my picture, take my picture." Has anybody really come up to you, and what has that kind of been like, particularly with their teammates, seeing those photos?
It's been fun. I feel like I can contribute to my team in a way beyond just like my sports performance too, which is really neat to have that. And trying to think, I feel like it's important to have pictures. It's important to mark, like, oh, this thing happened. And maybe my teammate had a great race, and it's like, oh, I happened to get a picture of that. Now they can remember that race forever and have something to go with it. I don't know if I explained that right, but.
Well, so obviously we've got to plug I know you've got a photography Instagram. You want to plug it?
I don't know. It's kind of secret. Like, if you find it, you find it.
No worries. That's good. Well, that'll wrap things up on our first segment. Mia, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for taking the time in our space. That'll wrap things up on the 100-meter dash here in our first segment of episode 4. Thanks again, Mia, for being here. See you next time.
Thank you.
I want to once again say thanks to Mia McCormack for coming in for our first segment on episode 4. Maddie and myself will take things the rest of the way on the rundown, our weekly segment in which we wrap things up and recap and preview the sports going on around campus. And Maddie, they're starting to become few and far between as these seasons wind down. But let's take a look at what happened this past week.
Golf started off with their Northwest Conference Championship. Douglas Bailey for the men's golf team wins his second straight medal and Player of the Year, along with their coach Wilson wins Coach of the Year as the Wildcats finish off in second place. And for the women's golf team, Garcia and Pate give their best rounds of the season in that Northwest Conference Championship.
It was a grind, and all season long, both men's and women's teams have been doing so well. Headlined, obviously, by Douglas Bailey as he wraps things up and goes the distance and has the Player of the Year honors. Mitch Wilson, also good for him. That Bun Wilson household is going to have some bragging rights at the dinner table for a long time coming. Good for Mitch Wilson to finally get that Coach of the Year. Golf on both sides, men's and women's, has been so wonderful to watch all season long. We want to congratulate those teams as they wrap things up. Of course, with track as well, we didn't talk about it, but their season is over. And so I want to send a huge shout out to Mia McCormack and the track team for their efforts all season long. We'll touch on a couple more of those events here in just a moment, but keeping things going, baseball had a series against Whitman this past weekend in which they won the series by putting up 32 runs in total, 16-2 win, 6-0 win, and then a 6-5 loss in Game 3. But 32 hits in total. All 32 of those hits came around to score as the pitching also was dominant. Matthew Tashney, 7 1/3 innings for him of just 2-run ball as he was on his game as always. And a Cole Nolet, Conference Player of the Week, mind you, on the pitching side of things as he goes 7 innings as well with 8 strikeouts, a season high for him. And so the baseball is really clicking. They unfortunately lost this past Wednesday, I beg your pardon, but we'll touch on that again in just a moment. The baseball has one more series on the road and one more series at home before they make their conference push. We'll touch on it again in just a moment.
Absolutely. Baseball really showing off their series toward the end of this season, showing off what they can do on their bats and what they can do in the bullpen.
Baseball, a team to keep an eye on as we keep going forward. They will be playing, hopefully, deep into May, Maddie. But softball also looking to play deep into May, maybe even June, as they keep their postseason push going. They had a big series in Parkland, Washington, Tacoma area against PLU this past weekend that unfortunately didn't go their way.
Not exactly what you wanted to see from the softball team here, but I know that with their grit and determination, they can get right back in it and keep up with that first place spot.
Still, the number 11 team in the country is the Linfield Wildcat softball program, but PLU now up into the national rankings after knocking them out. That's going to be a very, very important thing to keep an eye on, as Pacific Lutheran has now clinched the conference tournament and will host that on May 2nd and 3rd. And so Linfield will try to take a vengeance into that series and bring softball back to McMinnville in a regional or super regional. We'll keep tabs on that throughout the next couple of weeks for you all on our podcast. But But to wrap things up, we will touch on a spring sport that normally happens in the fall. Maddie, you're familiar with this sport. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, men's soccer had their spring games recently up in Washington, tied both matches 1-1, Jaron and Bo being the goal scorers there for them. Really great showing, noticing how they came off of their fall season, unfortunately. Not the best, but a good start to getting ready for next fall.
Next fall is going to be a very, very interesting one. Next couple of episodes will be some previews for the fall, so keep tuned on the Weekly Wildcat to learn about some of the sports happening next season. We will continue to take a look at some of the events that happened in this past week and then preview a couple more that are coming up in the upcoming weeks here around McMinnville. But this past weekend, Linfield Lacrosse also wrapped up their season as they went up to Newburgh to face George Fox. And that was a very good game there. George Fox is the perennial team to beat in the Northwest Conference, and a couple of very good games this past weekend. A senior day for the 6 seniors on the lacrosse team also happened on Sunday against Willamette. Very, very fun games. Very, very good ends to a lot of those players' careers. We want to send a huge shout out to them as well as their season has now concluded. But also softball versus Puget Sound here in McMinnville. It was a great series as they were able to bounce back and take care of business to continue their push towards a Northwest Conference bid in the conference tournament here in a couple of weeks coming up. But Maddie, that was a great series to be at. Great atmosphere as always at Del Smith Stadium.
Always showing off what they can do on the bat and showing how much cat ball really puts an impact on this campus.
We've heard from Ashlyn Avon so far on our podcast. Really great to talk to her. She talked about that cat ball culture, which has played such a huge factor into their success. Baseball also went up to Puget Sound in Tacoma to face off against Puget Sound. And that was another really good series. Puget Sound has been playing a little bit better recently in the Northwest Conference, but Linfield taking care of business as always. A couple of really, really good series there and ones to keep an eye on as the season wraps up. And one more series for both of those teams this coming weekend. We will touch on it in just a moment. Also to wrap things up on our recaps, track and field had the Northwest Conference Championships in Spokane to wrap their seasons up. And so several sports are concluding their seasons here this past weekend. Really, really good for them as well. Looking ahead in the future, Northwest Conference tournaments for softball on the verge is May 2nd and 3rd. The softball team, as we just talked about, will be in Tacoma in a very, very important series for them as they look to bring softball back to McMinnville for a regional. That's going to be one to keep an eye on as the injury bug has played a little bit of a factor for the softball team this season, but their bats are no joke, and they hope to ride them coming into McMinnville once again.
Yeah, you definitely know that they're going to show up and show out every chance they can get, and they want the tournament back here in McMinnville, and definitely excited to see what kind of teams show up and what the results will be.
May 2nd and 3rd, Linfield Baseball has a series against Lewis and Clark, and that will be a really, really good one as it'll be senior weekend as well. The Wildcats will wrap things up on the diamond in McMinnville, more than likely for the regular season as they still have a chance to bring the Northwest Conference back to McMinnville, but the Whitworth Pirates are making a very good bid to host in Spokane on the baseball side of things as well. Something to keep an eye on as these seasons wrap up, at least the regular season on the baseball side of things. But senior weekend, it's going to be a good one. Myself and Ethan Klein will be on the call for that one to wrap up our careers on the Linfield Sports Network. That'll wrap things up for us here this afternoon as we want to once again send a huge shout out to Mia McCormack for being our guest on episode 4 of the Weekly Wildcat. But I send a huge shout out to our crew as well, behind the scenes, Tyler Shooter, Cade Townsend, and Sebastian Sevilla as well, as all doing a wonderful job behind the scenes. Good to have Cade Townsend in the studio for the first time, doing a wonderful job working our cameras, and Sebastian Sevilla as well doing audio. But Tyler, wonderful job as always. And of course, great to have you back on the table, Maddie Funk. Signing off for our entire crew, my name is Brian Kice. We'll see you next week on the Weekly Wildcat.